We are back with the RS, and today I want to try to wrap up the last of the mechanical stuff that we can do. There's a couple little like wire connectors and stuff that I'm waiting on, but I want to get the engine bay pretty much done. So I actually have to pull off the compressor cover on the turbo because we're running a turbo speed sensor on this car, and when I drilled the hole, I didn't drill it large enough for the turbo speed sensor, so we have to somehow get that compressor cover off, be able to drill the hole up bigger, get out any aluminum shavings, hook up the boost controller. I started playing with it a little bit earlier on some of this hard line, and I haven't quite figured out how I want to do it quite yet. So we've got 3 lines to make, one from the turbo to the boost controller, and then the 2 from the boost controller down to the wastegate. From there, we have to fix the leak in the power steering reservoir, get some more clamps on intercooler piping, clean up a couple of last little things, and I think we should be pretty much good at that point. So let's start with the worst of this, and that is getting the compressor cover off the turbo, because there is quite literally no room to be able to do this. I low-key wish I would have made the up pipe a little bit taller when I built this kit, but it's whatever. As you guys can see, it's just super tight fitment right there. So what I think I can do is take off the turbo blanket, undo the down pipe to the turbo, loosen up the turbo to the up pipe, spin the turbo this way a little bit, undo the bolts for the compressor housing, and then pull that off to be able to drill it up. So this, I may have to, I don't want to take off the intake manifold again, but I actually might have to. We'll see. I'm gonna try to do this somehow. I just don't know how yet. Hit some of these bolts that's tightening. That's tightening. What am I doing? No, that's tightening. Yeah, that's loosening. Okay. I wish I would have. Now I know for next time. Make sure that you drill the hole big enough for the turbo speed sensor. Cooler piping off. There we go. There we go. That just fell into the down pipe. Are you kidding me? No! Okay, there's our turbo out. There's our compressor housing out. It does! Woohoo! Look at that! Cool. Only took me having to go back like 5 steps, but you know what, that's alright. It'd be like that sometimes. Turbo back in, speed sensor actually in this time I went ahead and threw in the boost controller line from the boost controller to the boost reference. I was trying to do that as a hard line, but I was not liking how it was coming out whenever I did a hard line. I think I did 3 or 4 revisions of different hard lines. I just didn't like it. I just didn't like how it looked with the hard line there. So we are going to be doing hard lines from the boost controller down there to the wastegates, which I actually think we're going to do that next. So with the speed sensor in, I have to order the electrical connector so that way I can actually wire that up to that guy. But having the speed sensor, for some of you guys that don't know what this does, is it measures how fast the turbo is actually spinning. And one thing I really like about Borg-Warner, and I believe Garrett does this too, I have not seen, Precision might do it, I just haven't seen it. Borg-Warner will give you the efficiency range of the turbo in something called a compressor map, and you can actually cross-reference your turbo speed to the compressor map to see if your turbo is actually in the efficiency range that it's supposed to be in. So that's actually a really nice piece of data to be able to have into our Haltech. So that is taken care of. Getting that turbo back in was actually way easier than I thought because I made this kit nice and easy. So let me start doing some hard lines from the boost controller down there to the wastegates. It's going to be the top port, which is upside down, so the bottom port on that's going to go to the top of the wastegate. The bottom port's going to go to the bottom. hard lines are done. If you guys check it out, they run off the boost controller right there, down to the wastegate down there. I also tossed in the O2 sensor, turbos reassembled. So everything pretty much with the turbos done. This one I opted to keep a soft line because the hard line just looked really out of place and really awkward. And to be honest, I just didn't like it. So turbo system is pretty much good to go. There is one more vacuum line that we have left to do. I can't do it quite yet because I'm waiting on the hose to come in, but that is going to be our brake loop booster line that goes from here to that hose there. I'm just waiting on the fitting in the connector. Outside of that, I want to fix this power steering fluid leak. I want to get brake fluid in here, get the brakes bled on this thing to get the brakes working. So as like, I don't know how I'm gonna fix this yet. I'm gonna pull this canister out of here under the two lines, clean up where the fluid's leaking out of, and hopefully find a way to seal this thing up because I am so tired. If anybody at Chase Bays watches this, just weld the fitting. Just weld the fitting to the bottom of the canister so the fitting doesn't leak out of the bottom of the canister. It's the dumbest thing. I don't even have any fluid left in here. It's leaking out somehow, so there's gotta be something. No, dude, that thing's like bone dry. That's just like bone. I don't understand. How is it still leaking if it's bone dry? Like, that's some like wizardry, some magic. Does anybody else have these issues with Chase Bays, or is it just me? Is this user error on every single one? Oh my God, that's so much fluid. What have I done? What have I done? Pretty sure this is an ORB. It's about to be a hell of a lot more than ORB. ORB my ass. Okay, we're gonna put a different O-ring on this because I don't trust this one anymore. Obviously, it leaked like a fucking sieve. If you don't know what a sieve is, it's like a colander. If you don't know what a colander is, it's what you put your spaghetti in to get all the freaking water out. Because ain't no one eating wet spaghetti. Give me that. That looks like a freaking good O-ring right there. Are you kidding me? Okay, the one I just did has to come back out, so it might leak. All right, we have literally a crush washer with a rubber seal and an O-ring. Should I put thread tape on this too? I feel like I should. I'm going to. I probably don't. That might be overkill, but you know what? I'm tired of power steering fluid being everywhere.
Now you have test table.
Yeah.
Test bench.
Test bench. I've got this contraption set up. I'm gonna let this sit overnight. I've got the fittings capped. It's probably gonna leak out of the fitting on the big one, the rubber piece, which is fine. That's not a big deal. What I'm looking for is to see if any fluid's gonna come out of the actual fitting that meets to the canister. So I'm gonna let this sit overnight, and if it doesn't leak out of the actual like fittings to the canister, we'll put it back in. Every single Chase Bays product I've ever used, and everyone else has had these issues with Chase Bays stuff, is they always leak. I don't just weld the fitting to the canister and then powder coat it. Well, it's the next day, and I only see dripping coming out of the rubber cap on the end of the fitting, nothing coming out of the actual fitting itself. So we're gonna go ahead and toss this thing back in. I'm gonna pull all the fluid out, get the lines hooked back up. We'll put the power steering back in. I'll attempt to bleed it as much as I can right now. I don't know how much it's actually going to bleed, but we'll try to get as much of the air out of the power steering system as possible, so that way we can get, for the most part, when we go to do our first start, the power steering pump's not gonna be screaming for dear life. Yeah. Yogi does?
Yeah.
Kind of, not really, but you know. With our leak seemingly fixed, fluid in the reservoir, I'm gonna hop in the car, turn the steering wheel left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, to try to push out any air that might be in the power steering lines and just get it out. But I think that's about as good as it's gonna get, to be honest. A little bit under a gallon of coolant, power steering fluid. We need to get some brake fluid in this thing. We have one more vacuum line to hook up. I was working on the base map yesterday. And then technically speaking, after that, all we need is fuel. And we should actually be able to start this thing. I was gonna try to shoot for a first start in this video, but that unfortunately is not going to happen. I don't have the right throttle pedal electrical connector. I think this is 08 plus and I have an 07 pedal. It looked the same when I got it. It is most definitely not the same, so I'm gonna have to order the appropriate one because I'm not gonna be able to start the car because it's not gonna have throttle control, it's not gonna be able to idle, it's not really gonna be able to do anything. It might just rev to the moon. I don't quite know, so I'm not even gonna risk it. So we're gonna do everything possible to get this thing ready for a first start. We need to go get some more coolant. I need to go pick up some banjo fittings from the auto parts store real quick so that way we can get the rear brake lines put onto the rear calipers, get brake fluid in this, bleed the brakes, get more coolant in this. I'll buy another gallon of coolant, and then the last 2 fuel lines. And then at that point it is a throttle cable or a throttle pedal plug and a little bit of tuning, and I think we should be ready for first start. So I'm gonna go run to the auto parts store real quick and go grab some stuff. I want to try kicking it over to get just a water pump to spin to see if I can get that last little bit of coolant to get stuck there. She ain't sucking it down. Oil pressure went up to like 115 PSI though, so that's pretty neat. All right, she got coolant in her. No coolant leaks from what I can see. We got oil, we have power steering fluid, which I can actually add a little bit more now that we're no longer leaking. Well, we have to hook up the rear banjo bolts. We have a completely dry system, so I'm gonna use a pressure pot to go on the cap to force brake fluid through the lines and everything. But before we do that, I wanna hit all the lines to make sure that they're all tight. Since brake fluid is caustic, it will eat through paint. I do not want this to leak brake fluid.
You fucking put these in backwards too.
Does it hold the brake line in?
It's upside
Does it
down.
hold the brake line in? That's what I'm asking you. Does it hold the brake line in?
Not pressurized like it's supposed
Does it hold, is the brake line moving?
to. Yeah.
No, it's not.
Flip it over, you know.
I can't even get it out. Look, it's in there so well, it doesn't even come out now. You know what you're talking about. Did it work? Did it hold the brake line in? Huh? Don't put it back in! What are you doing? I need to loosen this first. Oh, now you see what I'm talking about.
Well, you said it
Now
wasn't
I'm not
action.
crazy.
I thought you meant that it wasn't long
Now
enough.
I'm not crazy. So with all the brake lines hooked up and everything good to go, we're gonna go ahead and pressure test the system now with this little pressure pot. So I'm gonna set this to about 15 PSI. I've got it hooked up to a cap on the reservoir. That is going to push 15 PSI of air through the entire system. Assuming that this does not lose pressure, then we're gonna go ahead and proceed to put brake fluid in and start bleeding the brakes so that way we have working brakes in this car. If it fails this pressure test, we're gonna have to go through the system and figure out where it's leaking. We do not want caustic brake fluid to leak on the car or onto the Corolla or any other car that's parked underneath of this thing. So let's get this thing pressure checked. I'm gonna pump this thing up to roughly 15 PSI or so. This is gonna right there, right above 20 PSI. We'll come back in about 15 minutes and check this to make sure it hasn't dropped. So for my reference right here, right above 20 PSI. Been about 25 minutes. This is pretty much sitting exactly where it was. It's maybe come down to a PSI. So we'll let out all the pressure in that. We're gonna pre-fill our reservoir real quick with some .4 brake fluid. We're gonna fill that up with .4 brake fluid, and then I'm gonna go around the car, start bleeding the brakes to get as much air out as I can. I think I'm still gonna have to do this manually with another person later, but if we can get through most of the bleeding now, it'll be a huge time saver. Brakes are bled on this now. Now, I tried to use the power bleeder and it just wouldn't work, so Melanie came over, she sat in the car, pumped the brake pedals, I went around and bled this. We did about 2-3 cycles on this, and the brakes are feeling pretty good. There was quite the mess of brake fluid that I did have to go through and clean up, but brakes are good now. Got brakes bled, clutch bled, coolant in the car, power steering leak fixed. I made the base tune last night, so we'll plug in tomorrow and get that done. Oil is in, intercooler, everything's reassembled, boost controllers hooked up, hard lines are done, speed sensors in the turbo. We're almost through the entire pre-start checklist. There is the throttle pedal connector that I have to wait for before we can actually start this thing, but like I said, if we can get through pretty much everything possible on this to get this thing started, as soon as the last like 2 things come in, we'll be chilling. So tomorrow we're gonna knock out the fuel lines, upload the tune, do a couple tuning changes, hook up the last vacuum line, which is the brake booster, and we could probably put some fuel in it. And at that point, we'll check for fuel leaks and we should be pretty much good to go. We're gonna jump over to some ECU stuff. I'm going to plug in with my computer. We're going to finish doing calibrations and setup, ECU setup, all that stuff. Once we get that last little connector in, we should be good to go. With standalones, it's not as easy as just you plug everything in and it's good to go. I have to go into the ECU and tell the ECU what sensors we have. Sometimes in the ECU, there's a drop down for a preloaded calibration file. Sometimes there's not, and if there's not, I have to go into Haltech's website, find the sensor or find whatever brand sensor I'm using, find the calibration file, take that information, input it into the ECU, so that way the ECU knows what these sensors are reading at what voltage. For example, like on the IAT sensor, at X temperature, it will be this voltage, or at this temperature, it will be that voltage. So that way it knows what data it's seeing. So let's go through, get the ECU set up the rest of the way, get all these sensors calibrated, and pretty much the electrical side of it wrapped up for what we can do right this second. So I've got what I believe most of the calibration and setup done with for what I can do now. I actually got my throttle to work somehow. Don't ask me how, I somehow got it to work with an existing connector that I had. So we're gonna go for a first start. We're gonna try for a first start today and see if we can get this thing to fire up. I don't know if it will or if it will not, but we're at least gonna try. So one thing stopping us from firing up this car is these bulkhead connections for the fuel lines need to go up to the fuel pump assembly up there. I don't know how I want to do this permanently, maybe have the lines run all the way around and whatnot. The long-term plan is to make these out of PTFE. I don't have any right now. So I'm just gonna do a very temporary fuel line setup going from here to the fuel pumps just to get some fuel up into the engine bay to see if we can actually get this thing started. So let me actually just knock these out real quick because I'm kind of hyped now. Got some kind of janky fuel lines made, but for what we're doing right now, they'll be fine. I've got 15 gallons of fuel that I just got. I just measured out 1 gallon into that 1 gallon jug. So while I'm putting fuel in this, I am gonna record the measurements for fuel level so I can calibrate fuel level as I'm putting in fuel. So I'm gonna put in 1 gallon at a time, measure what the voltage is off of the Haltech, record that number into my phone, and then create a spreadsheet and put that into the data points for the Haltech. The more detailed you can get with fuel level, the more accurate it's going to be. So I'm also gonna leave a 3 gallon reserve. So I'm gonna put 3 gallons in and record that as my zero measurement for no fuel in the tank. So that way I've got a reserve. So that way 0 gallons is not 0 gallons. So let me start measuring out 1 gallon at a time, putting it in and recording the voltage. I got about 7 gallons in on calibrating the fuel level sensor and it just capped at 0.38 volts. So I need to look into why, and we'll readdress that later, but we have about 7 gallons of fuel in the car right now. I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna see if she'll fire up. I don't know if it will or if it will not. I have not put a timing light on this yet. I'm just starting with the base TDC offset angle, which is around 400 degrees. TDC offset angle, it can range from 0 to 719.9 degrees. You hook up a timing light to cylinder 1's spark plug or ignition coil, ignition wire, whatever it may be. Shine a timing light at the crank, and then you mess with the offset to figure out the offset. On the Haltech, it gives us a base starting point of around 400 degrees. So with what I have in there, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna see if she'll fire up. Oh! Oh! Okay, hold up, we were right there. Let me try this again. I did plug it in. What the fuck? No! Don't you hit me with crank position. I have injectors disabled right now, and it's like trying to start. Why is it wanting to start in flood clear? You guys hear that? Yogi, you're okay, bud. I'm gonna try pulling fuel out. I think it's got way too much fucking fuel right now. Dude, it's like right there. Flood clear. I pulled fuel out on the base fuel table, so I'm hoping that this will help. All I want to do is see if it'll start. That's it. That's it right now. I know why it didn't start, but I don't know why it did what it did. So when I was in there trying to crank it to get it to start, in the VE table, I am making it leaner and leaner and leaner and leaner. I'm changing target lambda leaner. I'm changing crank and pulse width on cranking to make it leaner and leaner and leaner because it seemed like it was just getting too much fuel. And I don't know why it just did what it did. It was full chooch on injector. I have the exhaust manifold now off. I've got the downpipe disconnected because there was fuel coming out of the up-pipe to exhaust manifold connection. So I need to find out why it just did this. I already drained the oil out of the car because the oil was obviously washed with fuel. We already did flood clear, so the cylinders are cleaned, or the cylinders are cleared, I guess I should say. I gotta buy new spark plugs. I was looking in the software. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know why it did this. I have to mop the floor because it is literally, there's fuel, there's oil, there's everything all over the floor now. I'm going to leave the exhaust off the car overnight so that way it can kind of vent and the fuel can evaporate. You know, it almost started when I had the injectors disabled. Well, quite obviously things did not go as planned, but I guess I'd rather show you guys this and get input and feedback versus me just not showing you guys this stuff. So I am going to go home. I'm gonna look at this map and see if there's gotta be a setting somewhere in there that I have to deselect or select or something, because it doesn't make sense. On the VE table, I'm telling the car, hey, less air, use less fuel. On cranking, I'm saying, hey, use less fuel. The VE table, I just kept making it leaner. I just kept making it leaner and leaner and leaner and leaner and leaner. And quite obviously, the car just kept dumping more fuel. So I have to see why. Something is not right. Quite obviously. If anybody has Haltech R3 experience or with the Nexus software, and if there's a setting that I have to disable or enable or something to not tell the injectors to spray full chooch, and it's not fuel pressure regulator too. I know someone's probably gonna mention that. Fuel pressure, I already set that. With the pumps priming, I just set pump prime for 30 seconds, and then while the pumps were running, while the one pump was running full chooch, I went ahead and adjusted fuel pressure down to 43.5 PSI. So I don't know what the issue is right now, but we'll figure it out. So with that, that's all I got for you guys on this one. We're so close to a first start on the RS. once we get past this one little issue of the injectors just staying full open, we should be well on our way. Until I get that sorted out, we are gonna jump on bodywork next and start prepping a lot of the panels and the body to be resprayed and repainted. So that's all I got for you guys on this one. If you like the video, you know what to do. Go ahead and hit that like button, turn it black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver, cyan, whatever color it turns for you. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to be able to put it in one of these corners, no idea which one quite yet, but with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. So peace out, homies.